What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Carbonite Bounty BS. It's been a minute. It's definitely been a minute, guys, and
Yeah.
glad to be back. As we see, we have another nickname here as well.
Hey, and let
Man.
me start by saying I fulfilled my sentence. I watched Star Trek: The Motion Picture on VHS.
Oh man,
Okay,
Oh wow.
so
that's
great
crazy.
film. And if you aren't aware, they are coming out with a digitally enhanced version with unseen unseen scenes edited in. So they're actually doing the George Lucas thing. They're in, they're fixing it up. They're making it better. That'll be released soon. So everyone, please watch. Great film. Thank you for the sentence, Your Honorable D.B. Brown. I appreciate you levying that on me. It's been a while since I watched that film, and I realized it was a really great film. So thanks,
Okay,
appreciate it.
yeah, what a punishment. Okay,
Oh,
what a
I,
punishment.
oh, it just sent curdles up my spine.
I'm sure it did.
And
well,
you
Uh,
deserved
guys,
it, by the way. I
yeah,
just want to make
yeah,
sure I
you
say that.
deserved
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah, I did because I had such a terrible argument on why George Lucas screwed up these films by releasing all this crap information. Yeah. All right. Let's get on to the real show. Go ahead, T. Mitch.
Right.
well, before we even dive into that, let's let our guy, our resident guy, DP, let everybody know where to find us at.
Nerdcyclopedia.com. People, make sure you're going to that website. You will get your favorite links to all your social media platforms that we are on at Nerdcyclopedia on Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. Make sure that you are subscribing to us on all our podcasts. We are on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast, we are there. Leave us some feedback, nerds at nerdcyclopedia.com. We love getting your feedback. Make sure that you are on our Facebook groups. You know, we are on Carbonite Bounty BS, a Facebook group. And make sure that you're leaving us some comments and talking about Andor. We're today talking about Andor, the new Star Wars series. So make sure you leave some comments and feedback on what you think about it and what you think about us talking about it. And most of all, make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button and also going on to our YouTube channel. If you're watching us right now on YouTube, hitting that subscribe button and also hitting that notification button. So anytime that we're on, you know that we are on.
Well said, well said. And guys, I know we talked about this kind of 3 episode leading into this and how we would really digest it. Kind of initial reviews. I'll just keep mine short and sweet, to be honest. And it's not because I'm running out of breath, but merely because, really, I mean, I'm just going to watch this with an open eye. Meaning, I know we discussed a lot of times with even Marvel projects being a little bit hitting left a course or what we thought the course should be. I'm really taking this from a DP perspective and really just looking at this for what it is. And I'll say what outside of just the general aesthetic of this series so far, it's breathtaking to me. The only thing I say that it's an injustice that I felt episode 1 and 2 could have been shown on a motion picture, meaning the way this is shot at night. I don't feel that watching it at your home and Disney Plus on a standard television screen does it any justice. The way these night shots are shot and the way it looks on that picture, I think that any of the night footage they've shown so far is almost motion picture-esque in my eyes. I mean, I think that can be shown literally in a theater, the way they shoot these evening scenes and these shots. So yeah, I'm just really excited for it. I like it. I don't really have a negative review to say. I've seen a lot on there, but I'm really open with this. I really like the different story, and I'm just open to what they have to offer. What about you, DP?
Oh man, I mean, I second that. So I'm actually going to be disrespectful and
Ooh.
mention that I was at my son's practice watching this on my iPhone. So
He didn't hear that. Don't
Oh,
worry. He didn't hear that.
that's terrible. Oh,
so I have
Boo.
my beat in, and I watched the first 2 episodes on the on my iPhone, and I was just taken aback from it. I'm gonna rewatch this after this again, just to get the full effect on my um studio cinema and thing and everything. But I ended up watching the third episode, on my big screen and everything. And yes, oh man, whew, man. Yes, this is basically what I've been craving for from this universe ever since I've watched the Clone Wars and Rebel stuff. I know you guys are hardcore into the lore, loves the Skywalker saga stuff and everything, and God bless the Skywalkers and stuff. But this right here, if you're talking about changing tones, or in a universe and having the Ewoks exist in the same universe as this, this is like it's just incredible. I mean, it's amazing that where we're even getting this type of content, and the fact that you can switch tones and still make it justifiably be about Star Wars and about just another section of the universe, just does the whole universe justice and justifies it being made. I'm very surprised and very proud of Disney putting the money for a character that's really, I guess, minor in the Star Wars horror canon, because he just began it back in Rogue One, and we're just now getting another story with him and everything. To put this money, the money's on the screen right there too. So put that money in the screen for this project, and to not really sell any type of toys, I mean, it's a testament to what Disney. Okay, we're trying something different. And we're going to see how it works. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't work. But I'm very happy that they got the balls to actually go this route for this type of story.
Yeah, I totally agree. And where my review is going to start is, so we've been talking about looking for a story that came from the common man, like just the regular guy, like one of us. How would we deal with all of this that was going on? And I think they hit it out of the park by giving us that guy that we could all relate to, and his backstory all combined into the first. So we know exactly why Cassian is driven to the end, where we see him in Rogue One. We know, we already know, we know. So episode 4, they can just take off and go wherever. So we got the backstory. We got a character that's totally believable and relatable, and working class, just a regular dude on the street. How would he deal with all this? How is he going to deal with his family, his workplace, and how do you make all this work? This is going to be a great story, and I hope they keep it in the same vibe. I mean, I like the fact also that we're being forced to introduce ourselves to basically like non-Star Wars. I don't want to say, I don't know how to relate, because that's what I've watched it twice, and that's what I'm getting. Like, we didn't see any stormtroopers. We didn't see any Star Destroyers. We didn't see the Death Star. We saw Republic crew. We saw some Republic remnants in that ship that crashed on Canary. So we see some of the dying, Star Wars galaxy, but we didn't see any of the new stuff that we're all kind of familiar with. It forced us to sort of open our minds and know that there was more out there. There was stuff that we didn't know. And I dug that, because I'll tell you what, there was some legit scenes in there with just Cassian and like his co-workers. And you got the idea he was just the guy that everyone wanted to talk to at the water cooler, right? It's just some guy. He was cool. Chicks dug him. And I like the way that they're going with all this. So for me, these were a great, let's get used to something new episode set. And I understand why they released these 3 all like that, because you needed that, because you got that whole backstory thing. And it really set up a nice launch to whatever we're in for here. So great show so far.
For me, and I'm just gonna say it, this show is very much the most sci-fi of all the Star Wars content we've seen, and at least Star Warsy. Like I think, Ken, you really hit the nail on the head. There's no stormtroopers. there's no lightsabers, there's no force powers, there's no Jedi. You could very easily tell me that this was not a Star Wars property, and I would believe you. And I think that is a very big strength because, you know, this is a very different flavor. This is much more adult. This is like the James Bond of Star Wars. He has this origin story here. You know, he's plucked out of obscurity. He has this ability to sort of blend in with the Imperials. And I really appreciated how they've differentiated what these corporate people are in relationship to the Empire. And they've really given them a flavor that's very specific. It's this martinet sort of jerky bureaucracy, right? Which is not something you see in a lot of other Star Wars. It's always a lot of dash and a lot of, and I'll say this too, like in the Clone Wars, they were always like, oh, General Grievous is a strategic genius, and oh, Obi-Wan Kenobi is a strategic genius. And these guys are idiots. There's idiots on this show, dummies, just stupid morons on this show. And I love that Star Wars has given that to me. I want to say this show has the stupidest character in maybe all of Star Wars, and they named him Tim. His name is just Tim. Yeah. Tim, like with 2 M's, and that is, it's like when you're watching Game of Thrones and they're all of a sudden like, this is Lord Bob or this is Lord Jason. You know what I mean? Like it's just a name that sounds so normal. Right. And Tim was a jerk. What is he thinking of running at the guy with the gun pointed at him? Like what is he thinking? Anyway, I'm glad Tim got what was coming to him, but I think snitches get that, right? They deserve it. So, and I also like that this show, you know, it has a very separate motif. Like, you know, you're going to be watching Andor when you watch it because it's separate. The bad people are dressed like Dwight Freeney, so, you know, hunting people down at Syracuse, right? I mean, somebody must have been a Big East football fan and not been a big Syracuse fan to design these costumes. I love the very, very arrogant assistant inspector. And I really love the lazy bureaucracy of the old inspector who just leaves and he's like, no, we're not going to do any of that stuff. And he just takes off. He's like, you're going to write this up as an accident. And when I get back, it'll all be gone. Right. He just leaves, which makes sense. And it's so funny because we know he's actually right about what happened. Right. Like he actually has the correct expectation. Mm-hmm. These are kind of like elements of British television too, like British stories. And you have this Marva character who's sort of like a wily old sort of British lady, right? So this is also a very English show for some reason, and I think that's very, very interesting too. So, you know, if you compare it to Obi-Wan Kenobi, which just came out, you know, the last thing, that's very Jedi centric. It obviously has mainline characters. Darth Vader's in it. Hayden Christensen's in it. You know, this is exactly the opposite almost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And, you know, Ken, you made another really great point, and you deserve it because you had to watch Star Wars or Star Trek. You had to watch Star Trek to motion pictures. You deserve to make some good points. But this is very much the working class Star Wars. And I think that, you know what, it's time for us to get outside the palace walls and see what this universe is like and what it's like on the grimy end of this industry, and I'm here for it. This show has got my attention.
Yeah, you know. Go ahead, yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is, even from a tech standpoint, like we talked a little bit about how they do keep the worlds all relevant, so everything kind of looks the same, so there's cohesion. But for me, like, I'm a tech guy, so I'm always looking at how they're doing that. And just an example, Cassian's ship, when he launches off of the Desperado world, right? I forget what they BBY-5. It's a little bit of the Y-wing engines on that ship. I mean, there's all these callbacks, so that everything, even though it's a different story and it's a different timeline and it's something new that we're kind of experiencing, we can still feel that. We can still feel it's still part of that universe. And I dig the way the blasters all kind of look, the weapons are all kind of cohesive, and even the blowgun darts that that was the Canary people are sort of using are very similar to what Rey uses, her staff. You know, there's things that just kind of pull everything together. So I think it's a new story, new characters, new perspective, but they're using set design and technology to hinge everything together. So I dig that too.
I thought those blowguns. I thought that was a really great homage to like Raiders of the Lost Ark. That that introductory scene where Alfred Molina is just like all full of darts at the end there, and I thought that was really neat. I thought the way that they showed why Andor is sort of, why is Kanari weird. All those kids are there. It's just the kids, and they don't really explain it to you. They just let you know this is a really, really messed up situation.
Yeah.
And the language too.
Yeah.
Like, there was no subtitles.
No subtitles. Yep. Mm-hmm.
They just said that we just knew what they were saying.
Yeah.
Knew what they were trying to communicate to each other. That was slick. It was really cool.
Yeah. You don't get a lot of shows. In fact, I can't really think of any show right now off the top of my head where we get such an extended amount of communication without any subtitles. For English, language, English, speaking show and everything. So I thought that was very decisive when Disney could have just been, okay, well, the audience is going to need subtitles, captions and stuff. So please present that. So I think it was a lot of hands-off stuff. Tony Gilroy is like the showrunner and creator. He did like the Bourne Legacy and Michael Clayton, and plus, he wrote the, Rogue One and did a lot of the reshoots and everything of Rogue One and stuff. So his hands and everything are all over this. I mean, from the very first shot of like the very second scene in like the first episode, you see Andor and a couple of I want to say bandits or whatever come up from behind, but all we see is Andor at first. But we hear like the bandits or whatever come up from behind him, just like talking and asking him different questions and stuff, or trying to taunt him to get him to reveal himself and everything. But we don't really see him, and then we see them in like a sort of out of phase type of camera thing. So I noticed that like right off the bat, this is going to be just different. I mean, from the trailers that we seen, we knew it was going to be different anyway, but just seeing this just like confirm everything I wanted in this from the cinematography, from the camera angles to like the the way it was just shot, period. It's shot as if it was like an adult film. It's shot like film and everything.
Well, no, I definitely get where you're coming from for that. And to be honest, when you say adult film, I mean,
what do you mean?
I know Triple X,
Meaning, I really do get what you mean, ODP, and I really give kudos to Disney for this. I mean, when you talk about the content, not really just really adult film, but the content. I mean, the first scene,
yeah, from that first scene where
oh man,
you just go right to the action, just like
right to the money shot. Right to the money shot.
Yeah, but no, the kind of the beginning scenes of him, it was very, very adult oriented, meaning the content, like you're saying, is a lot more mature. I mean, he blows the guy's head off, which I'm like, wow, Disney's going to really allow that to happen. There was, the scene with her and Tim kind of like in the bedroom, and I'm like, geez, that's pretty racy for Disney. This is something they typically don't do. So I like how they're kind of letting the reins go and letting this show develop. And really, this is kind of alluded to. This is a true story. This is something that's not, in the city walls. This is what true gritty people outside of an upper echelon society. This is how normal people live, right? So I really like how we're taking the story. Really kind of gives you and kind of like the kind of Galaxy's Edge vibes, right? When you're in that city, it kind of makes you feel like you're in Galaxy's Edge. So
I thought that same thing as soon as they saw some of those buildings. I was like, well, that looks exactly like you walk in there and you see the outpost first, and you see the restaurant, and I was like,
I was just kind of like, yeah, man. So I think they're really hitting all phases for adults. So I mean, like I said, I don't know how the kids' reaction will be, but for as far as what we're looking at, I think this is hitting, everything I've asked for. And this is, and I don't want to take it away from this, but I think this is where Boba kind of missed that boat to being a little more serious, a little more gritty. This is what we wanted in that show. So I'm liking how it seems like they take feedback well from I don't know if it's us or whoever, but it seems like these shows progressively seem to get better and better and better as we move along this new phase of Star Wars.
Yeah, it sort of like, gives lights. I don't know what happened with like a lot of the shows beforehand, whether it was like a COVID issue or whether they were getting more dependent on like the volume thing, because I don't see a lot of that in this. It seemed like it seemed, it seemed like they got they progressed and decide, okay, well, you know what, it's time to get out of Manhattan Beach Studios and let's go outside and actually shoot some stuff. Let's get some trees, let's get some, let's actually go on location and actually film some things. Let's not just use like a background and, just have people walking. That was fine in like the early COVID days and stuff. When the first season Mandalorian came on, it was like, ooh, wow, and all that stuff. But now we're seeing sort of like the limits and the flaws of that, sort of seams and everything come out. This, I think Disney's like, okay, let's just see what can happen if we put a little bit more money in between, behind this. And like you said, T. Mitch, props to Disney for allowing more mature type of content for this universe, because they could easily, like I said, they could easily just let it just have its own, like, not to say that Obi-Wan Kenobi was a less mature tone and everything, or Boba Fett or Mandalorian or what have you, but they could have just easily did those type of tones and I think it would have been a lot less effective. This, we're taking it a lot more seriously with everything that we're seeing on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
There are consequences here. I mean, if there's anything that Boba Fett's wearing, it's plot armor. You know what I'm saying? And even those scenes of him as a his scenes escaping the Sarlacc pit, his scenes with the Sand People. I mean, they're anticlimactic because they're not going to kill Boba Fett off over there. We know he's fine because it's a flashback. Andor, what's different is that Andor has placed the tension in these flashbacks on all the other characters that are there, meaning that you can have that paid off. When their leader is shot dead by a Republic officer, right? That's traumatic. And we see this echoed through all the rest of these episodes. I mean, these guys that come after Andor, they don't get a second shot. There's no second chances in this universe.
And that's how you create a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you start it right there. You have to affect someone so deeply and so emotionally that you create a vessel to pour all this anger into. And he was the perfect subject for that. And I like that we got that. Like I said in my initial review, we got that entire story filled in for us, so we know why Cassian was willing to basically fall on the sword, for the rebellion, because it started with that moment,
right?
That moment where that leader that we didn't even know who it was. I mean, we don't know anything about these kids. There's no adults; it's just kids.
Yeah.
And what was so important about her? She was obviously the leader, and she obviously influenced the entire tribe so much that Cassian felt that this was the tool that he needed to kind of just create. It's affected his entire life.
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing there, you're seeing a young, impressionable mind being affected by something deeply traumatic. With her dying, and the and all that, the attack and everything happening, and it lasting is being just, and we'll probably see more of his personality. We're actually already seeing it now. Cassian carries a lot of weight with him. He carries a lot of remembrance and stuff. He doesn't let things go. So obviously, he doesn't let things go.
He's still looking for his sister.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So he's not letting things go, and it's following all the way up to his adulthood. I mean, obviously, us being like adults here, we may have held on to something to our childhood. It speaks to something about holding on to something and letting that sense of what happened to you when you was young develop into or manifest itself as you get older, and you just keep carrying it so long and everything, and you don't know how to necessarily or you just learn how to 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 put it in different ways that it'll help others, that it'll affect others. And Cassian is on a mission from when that first happened to him when he was young all the way up to right now. We're seeing his origin story, and I love the way episode 3 sort of went back and forth those last few scenes between him when he was young and him when he was older, when him in the present day and everything, and it just really juxtaposed really good.
That's what a great like Western escape, what a great paced scene that is. Like the way we have this tete-a-tete between these characters trying to suss each other out, trying to decide, is this actually the person I want to meet? And then to have them go on this like adventure where they're escaping these corporate, again, morons, these idiots that they sent after them. I mean, you wonder where did the mediocre people end up in Star Wars? The answer is corporate space. And I'm so glad we got that like so personified. They have the corporate sector is like one of those things in Star Wars that people talk about, and like it's there, it's drawn on the maps, and you don't go there very much. It's just like a place where you can go and things are a little different. And I know Han Solo, a bunch of Han Solo story, he would go and mess with this corporation and stuff. And so to see it here in all of its lifeless, hellish, wage slave glory, and to be portrayed as such, right? By Disney of all companies, like one of the biggest companies on earth, is so interesting, right? It really makes you think. I think it's interesting. Also, we see all this. There's a lot of environmental damage that's being done to these places. There, these characters are. I mean, strip mining, this enormous quarry, stripping these ships for parts. Basically breaking down old surplus Clone Wars, stuff for scrap or whatever. And it's just wrecking these places where this is happening. Like it's like the Empire showing up is not a good thing for anywhere. It's always awful,
and they know that. And to piggyback off your corporate, the corporate despise of this story. I felt like at one point I was watching an episode of Cops. When they bust in the door and we're here to deliver a warrant. For Cassian Andor, they're busting in, and they don't know who they don't even know if he's there, and they just ransack the whole place. So that's really how the common man thinks of authority. Right there is just, and that starts the whole distrust and hatred of the Empire, because that's what the Empire is. They just come in and they squash you, and they're using the Centurion guards, the Centurion patrol security, as their as the first nail, so it's not really the Empire, it's these like local government funded authority figures that are really causing the trouble, but really the Empire's driving the whole thing.
Yeah, and you got to wonder about that, because I'm thinking, okay, Palpatine is driving all this, right? So he's the top guy. So how does things filter down when he gives orders, and how things filter down to each level of management?
He manipulates
down
everybody. Yeah, he manipulates everybody. So you're thinking, well, why are these people? It couldn't possibly be the Empire. They're way out there. They're way far away. We're on the outer rim. They have no reach here. Guess what? Yes, they do.
Yeah, and I believe the old I guess the leader of them, that older man, said that basically you need to report this before the Empire. So it's one of those things,
right?
That the Empire is the overall kind of government of this, but they are still kind of separatists as long as they follow it, and stay in between their lanes, so to speak.
Right.
As these outlying issues start happening, I guess the government or the Empire then comes, pulls the reins in, and takes over. So, it's kind of funny as Hitch is saying this government stuff. It's kind of funny how Disney puts the kid on there with the tailored suit, and I love how they laid that out off the bat when he came in and he tailored the suit. He said, "Oh, you've redesigned your suit there," and it's the person. It's funny how Disney's kind of portraying him. If you were like looking like the white, skinny male, scrawny, not really assertive character, like I said, they're allowing this to happen, whether it's them calling the shots or not. So it's kind of a fun story. them poking fun at corporate America, maybe themselves or the machine, if you will. So, hey, I'm all for it so far. These first three were cool. I was expecting them to be a little longer based on what we heard, but I mean, I'm still happy with whatever 38
Yeah,
minutes at least
it
an
was
episode. It's
it was
good.
long enough
It was, yeah.
for a three.
I think an hour would have been like overkill for each.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been too much. I think the 38, 40-minute mark was
Yeah,
a
that's
good time for the
right.
story, because there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot to fill in. I mean, we're
Yeah.
looking at new stuff,
Characters.
new content. Yeah, and nothing relates back to what we already know. Everything is kind of a new.
Yeah.
We're learning about a new world. I mean, I've never heard of any of these places. I'll be honest.
No.
I don't know about any of these planets or any of these.
So Canary is brand new.
Brand new. Yeah. So
No, I've never heard of the Canary. I've never heard of the Boff that the other
Yeah.
planet they're on.
Well, Fengtex is the one that they're on current. That's where he is. That's where that the refinery is. They're like breaking down the technology and milling it or whatever the hell they're doing. I want to know the significance of the gloves.
Yeah, why
Yeah,
would they
right?
leave them?
Why they come to work and there's only one blank space, so that has to be Cassian. So where's his gloves? I don't know, but everybody else comes and gets their gloves. Like, what's the deal? What's the
Are they
deal with
getting them
that?
at the end of this shift? Did it seem
Yeah.
like they were picking them up and
Yeah.
then leaving?
Well,
Why would
were
they do
picking them
that?
up and going to work.
I don't know anything about it.
I'm pretty sure they were going to work. They're picking up
Ah.
their gloves. Why were they picking up why can't they take their gloves home with them? What's the point of that?
Well, have you ever smelled hockey gloves? They're terrible. You don't want
I
those
don't
in your
smell
house.
no gloves.
Hockey
Well,
equipment
is
does
that
not
what it
smell
is?
great.
They want to
Put
take them
them
gloves home?
Gotta put
I mean, they're
shoe
out
on
there
them.
working all day in that hot, like belching sun, where there's gases of all sorts, getting splashed with Lord knows what, using acetylene torches to cut like a hyper steel or whatever the shit they call it now in the GFFA. And you
Yeah.
know what? Here's something I know about the GFFA is if it makes a credit in that galaxy, Sheev Palpatine's getting a taste. And
Yeah.
that's just how it is everywhere. And I'm
16th
reminded.
credit.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of the way the Roman Empire was structured in a couple ways. One, the emperor controlled about 50% of all the wealth in the entire empire. So that's like just to give you an idea of how wealthy and powerful an emperor is going to be in this scenario. Sheev controls almost all of the money. So, it's when we talk about corporate, he owns this. This is just like a wholly owned entity. And for the Romans, Augustus held Egypt, which you may be familiar with. You may have heard of that place before. He held Egypt as a personal protectorate. So it was the emperor's property. And the corporate sector, I believe, is kind of structured similarly, where you don't have the oversight, and maybe you don't have as much. You don't have to do as much reporting. The Senate can't really mess with it because remember, the Senate's still around. This is 5 years BBY, as they were so very kind to tell us in the right terminology.
Yeah,
Thank you again.
right at the beginning, right? So we knew that.
So thank you very much. So all of that tracks, all of that makes sense. But when Sheev's getting his taste, he's in some cases selecting for loyalty, and as we've seen in our real world, selecting for loyalty instead of talent oftentimes will lead you into a position where the people that you can send to deal with a problem are idiots and will do stupid idiot stuff that you can't control, and that's not great.
And that's where the Centurion security force comes into play, because they're really they're the screw that falls out. I mean, there's really no
analogy.
Yeah, I mean, they're throwing the large rock at the ant, and they don't do it well. They miss.
Oh yeah, the royal.
And we see at the end where the kid that was adjusting his suit and tape, making, he was like, I'm gone. Like you could see it in his eyes. He had that Admiral Ozzel look, like, I'm out of here. This is my last gig. There was a lot of sadness in his eyes, and I wondered if he's going to be maybe a character that moves on with us, or is he going to be wiped out? Like, are we going to see him in episode 4, or is he gone?
mean, it's kind of his first. If you look at it, his first look at trauma, right? I mean, these are people that are corporate elites. He's probably never been in, like in the military. Maybe he's never been in active duty. That was his first time in active duty, as you've
Yeah.
seen. Didn't know how to handle it.
His
He's
dad
probably
probably
just
owns a
far.
speeder dealership somewhere.
right.
Yeah. Total
Exactly.
foobar.
Yeah. Definitely, and then he sees this trauma in front of him, and he, like you said, he didn't know how to react. I mean, he has blood on his hands,
Yeah.
similar to what the rebellion has dealt with, and now he has blood on his hands, and it'll be interesting to see his character moving forward if he's able to come back with that, or we'll see. What I'm sure this is going to get reported up. I mean,
He's
there's
gonna
stuff
have
out,
to
right?
shoot his boss. Like you figure this is bad. I mean, he's
Yeah.
how many guys are dead? Like
I
10
was
guys are dead
just
now, and he
thinking-
blew up all this stuff.
He's
They
going to have
only
to
have
take
what
that
they
old
They
guy
lost
out.
the ship too. Yeah, the ship's probably what 100,000 credits. I mean, how do you report that you're missing a ship?
And I'm thinking about the blood cost too. I mean, you got to pay out insurance, you got to pay out benefits, you got to pay out to next of kin. I mean, this stuff isn't free, and these guys probably have contracts. I mean, it's not like it's some conscripted, hypnotized stormtrooper that can't shoot straight, right? These are guys that fell out of that. These are the people that couldn't even be stormtroopers.
That
So,
is crazy.
These are the worst of the worst.
Most of the worst,
these are the people where, like, they played an inside linebacker in high school, and it is there. You're not in high school anymore. You're like 32, and you are playing maybe flag football at a YMCA, and they are not playing like they are anywhere except Friday Night Lights. You know what I mean? They're going strong side left, strong. These are every single one of these guys. I'm like, I've seen seen this guy, and it's just kind of funny to see them portray, not a mindless robot, right? Not a paladin like Jedi, not someone who's obsessed with morality. These guys are just doing a job, and they're all sort of pissed off that they have to do it a little bit. They're all like kind of resentful.
You guys are bringing up some good points and everything, into both what you and T Mitch said, Steel City. They're giving Disney's giving them a lot of runway to work with. So we're not getting truncated episodes like we did with what I feel that we did with Kenobi and also Boba Fett. So we're getting expanded story where they're able to develop a little bit more nuance with these characters, with these screws, and get to see, like, Taylor reactions and stuff, stuff how it really affects them, in a 6 episode, story that would have been highly probably cutting and irrelevant and everything. Those screws would have been there out, in come the stormtroopers, but with this, we're seeing more development. We're seeing a pacing, being developed, a lot better than what we had, what we probably missed with the other series and stuff. So I think that's a testament to Disney, with them doing this as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this sets up another episode of, ladies and gentlemen? This is setting up another episode of Nerd Court. I mean, DP, I mean, you've kind of alluded to this, and I said this before. I mean, what's the key factor in all these stories that you're excited about? They're new properties that fans like us, even the 1% super fans who swear they know where Andor is from, and they have all this lore, but we don't know, right? So Disney has now found a formula that works for them.
Yeah.
Stop telling stories about the Jedi we know about. Stop telling stories about people. Tell new stories. Why? Because we can't complain. We can't bitch, right?
Right.
With The Mandalorian, we really can't bitch because we don't really know, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
So when they're telling us these new properties, it's allowing us to really take this in and now develop these characters. They tried it maybe with the Obi-Wan, and we weren't too happy with what they did, but we kind of knew the characters, right? We knew that they were Inquisitors. We kind of had an idea what Inquisitors did. But in this story, we don't know what's going on. We don't know the time frame really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's allowing us to take it in. So I really think that this is a formula for Disney and all these stories moving forward, to these anthologies just being different stuff that we just really can't connect with directly, but we have a similar liking because we know the universe. So I'm really excited for this.
What you also told about too is that a lot of the legacy characters like the Skywalkers, Solo, Kenobi, Boba Fett, and everything, those are stuff from way back that you're sort of used to, and to sort of change, like, some stuff here and there and everything, is you're going to get a response. You may get like a response as if you've been into an orange and it's like, that type of response, like a child
that you didn't peel the rind off at first, right?
Yeah.
Right. He's like,
Peel that off the earth.
That's how you end up in the security force for. They hand you an orange, and if you just bite it, they hire you.
Yeah, it's not going to work if you just bite into the orange and everything. So yeah, I understand.
It's not going to work.
How about the fitness as a security force? As we're saying, wow.
Oh,
That's why I said I was
Those
telling
are
you,
winning
these guys.
athletes, man. That's definitely the
Middle linebacker,
YMCA,
but
yeah.
14, 15 years later, right? Maybe they have a job that they have to do with something physical. Maybe they hold a jackhammer all day, but they're hammering beers. So they put on 60, 70, 80 pounds, and they've gotten 15, 16 years dumber. So
dumber, yeah.
Speaking of hammers,
it's a one-way trip.
Speaking of hammers, how about that guy with at the bell tower and everything? His job is awesome.
I forgot it because that was the first trailer.
Scene,
the first sneak we saw
great.
was this guy walking up there he put his headphones on. He was like, I forgot about that. And then when they actually worked it into the episode, he told everyone to go home.
Yeah.
He's like, he's just up there. He's just like, God, I love this job.
Yeah.
So awesome.
I got the most awesome job. Yeah.
He's like, there's nobody in Star Wars that's ever just happy. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone in Star Wars is always like, oh, I need revenge on this guy for something. Yeah, and this guy's just like, you know what? Just banging on a drum all day. And maybe he's onto something.
Yeah. He has his job and everything.
And you know what? The other neat thing that they introduced in this was, so the Empire is this huge trillion, kabillion credit industry that can't be beat. Cassian says it. What's the one thing they miss? Just someone walking in their front door, walking on their floors, he says, talking their language. And what's the one thing we see that also brings this whole thing together? The Empire can be brought down by just some plans, with just a computer cluster that's pulled out. The smallest little thing can undermine this entire machine.
Right. That one conversation he had with Skarsgård's character about the arrogance of the Empire, and being able to walk in and he was a conversation. He said, well, how did you get in?
He walked in the front door.
What? You must have done something. It must have been something more than that. No, it was the arrogance. These people, these fat cats, these fat bastards, and all that stuff.
Yep.
They don't care about nothing. They're so arrogant that I can walk in there and spit on their food and do all this, that, and the third, and everything, and they will have no wherewithal.
And you can go take this really simple piece of technology from them, and that will collapse their entire structure, like the plans, which he inevitably is responsible for.
It's like foreshadow.
Like, no wonder they picked him to do that, right? He's just gonna waltz in there and walk out, and and it's so great because that's literally his plan in Rogue One. We're gonna waltz in there, we're gonna act like we own the place, we're gonna walk out with it, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So it's great for this character. I mean, this is a home run for me. I'm really excited about where they're going with this. Another great Western, but unlike the Mandalorian, I don't think we're going to see a lightsaber here, right? I just don't think it's going to happen. So it's even another step. Right. It's another step further away from the stuff that's so on the rails. Like a character like Luke Skywalker is mapped out from like conception to death at every single spot. So you can only affect so many things with them. So the plot armor is so strong with a character like that, or with like Leia, for instance. Like, you can't, like, could Leia have seen any of the traumatic stuff that Cassian sees here? And really the answer is no, because it would change how she acts later. It would have to. Right. And so you would know that this is kind of false. This reminds me of Game of Thrones, which is a show that was really great at shorthand telling you why you should give a shit about someone, and then just wiping them off the face of the earth like right away, right? Yeah. Bang, gone.
It goes to that pacing and everything, and I mean that's a great show that you brought up, because I'm watching like House of the Dragons and everything, and it's a much different level of pacing that you can either like it or you don't, depending on like, your level of liking that particular show and everything. But this was reminding me of like the early days of Game of Thrones, where you had the pacing of the show and the characters that were introduced were given a lot more nuance, a lot more character around them before, like, Hitch said, they were wiped out,
Ruthlessly, just
Yeah.
Tim, you got
Boy, Tim would have been in trouble in Game of Thrones, right?
You know what? He got what he deserved because
got what he deserved.
was
Yes.
bottom of the barrel, and he
Not
got
that we're going to
taken out
spoiler.
by bottom
We're
of the
not
barrel.
spoiler alerting something that's been 10 years old, but that's Ned
Right,
Stark right
come
there, right?
on.
I'm going to do what's honorable. I'm going to do like these guys are all acting like that. I'm going to do what's right, and no matter what the cost, even if it's stupid, I'm just going to do it.
What a creep, though. How about that guy, like, just like staring at her from the back of the bar? Weird. It's a
Yeah.
weird kind of boyfriend to have, right?
Yeah, he's super weird. Oh, I mean, I could look at her all day actually. So, man, she's nice. Whew. Anyway,
Now, who's she going to end up being? Like the relationship between her and Cassian? Is she? She's definitely not from Canary, right? So where's that going? Because there's
It's interesting
something-
because she's the only other person other than
the mother. Well, not
the
the mother. But
yeah,
the woman that.
whatever, yeah, the older lady that
the older
knows who
lady.
he
I like
really
her
is.
character too.
Yeah,
Marva.
Marva, yeah.
Yeah.
What a Star Wars name,
Yeah.
Marva.
Typical.
Yeah.
Yeah, even she has some regret. It's kind of crazy how we get these stories, and we talk about how Obi-Wan was kind of stolen from his family, and it was a weird situation because she had no idea that he was with a tribe. I mean, he's in an imperial ship, going crazy. There's nobody with him, so she just did what typically a mother would do, is just try to take care of him, not knowing. But
She
the
saw
dynamic.
the fire, though. She
Yeah.
saw that anger, that attack, that natural attack, sort of like just expectation, and she said, I got to save this. I'm not going to let, because the Republic's going to come down here and rain hell.
Right.
They're going to rain fire on this entire planet.
Okay. So she saved him pretty much from that, because I was trying to follow that. He wasn't going to go back to his peoples. I think that's what
They were all going to be wiped out. They were all going to be. They're all wiped out.
He decided, okay, this is the one. I have a connection with him. I'm gonna save him. And
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so, because when that ship, that's why they stole the fuel modules, I believe. They were trying to get anything out of there before the Empire had came down to figure out what happened to that and try to maybe get remnants, because if they saw some of them on there, I'm sure they would have just went and killed them all, sent a search team out and killed them. So I think she just tried, as he said, to protect him. But it was kind of funny
that she definitely said Republic and definitely acted like they were going to act like how we would consider the Empire. Like definitely like the Empire we know would show up and just be like, all right, well, we're just going to wipe out everything within a mile of this thing and see you later. Like that's just how they'd act.
So back then, so when he was young, that was during the Republic before they actually became like the Empire.
I felt that was during the whole.
I thought it was during the war, wasn't it?
Right, during the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
the Republic was kind of on the outs.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that.
This is kind of between 3 and 4. Remember, DP? So we're kind of at that end of end of the Jedi Council, kind of the Coruscant Council.
It's like 15 to 18 years before this setting was when Episode 3 happened. Like Episode 3 would be 15 years before this. Episode 1 would be
right.
Episode 2 would be 18.
The Republic would have been still the enemy.
Well, I'm talking about the flashbacks specifically.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by saying Republic, they're coding, telling us that it is at least 15 years before these events, because that's how long it has been since the Empire was established. So they're saying it's a longer time. It's a long time ago. And what that says is that that guy, these Republic officers shoot first and ask questions later on kids. Like that's weird. That's weird that they're just just pulling up. Like that guy wakes up, looks at, obviously he's after a crash, looks at this, 13-year-old girl and just shoots her in the back. That's not like, if you portrayed a United States like helicopter pilot doing that, you would be protested significantly if you did that in art. So that's very, very underhanded and bad play. To have the Republic be doing that says something also about what was the state of the Republic before the Empire showed up, which again speaks to, is this a working class Star Wars, which again Ken correctly identified this as the most, rubber meets the road. It's almost like these people don't have enough time to give a shit who's running the Empire. Like they just are too busy trying to get by. Like they can't really be bothered with
they don't have time to worry about the politics and worry about all the bureaucracy that's going on, because that's actually all failed in their eyes. They don't trust it. They don't see the significance of it, and they don't see the value of it. It's all crap.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting how they're taking these themes, these kind of nihilistic undertones of our post-COVID society, and really holding a mirror up to it, which is something that I don't think Star Wars gets a lot of credit for being topical. And sure, is some of this a little, TBS 1994 Planeteers-y, and like it's okay, I get it. Like I get what they're saying, right? Like you kind of understand some of it.
It goes back to the prequels. I mean, George Lucas was a genius before his time setting all this up. He may not have was able to communicate the dialogue, very but plot wise, he was ahead of his time.
If he'd have just done a Larry David and be like, you guys write the dime out of here. You just improvise.
So he set everything up. I mean, we wouldn't be telling these type of stories, I don't think, if he didn't make those prequels like how he did, and give the inspiration to tell these type of stories.
I'm trying to think if I think that this has more to do with, or like more thematic relationship to the original stuff. Now, I think you've made my brain do this. I'm thinking about, is this closer to the original trilogy, or is it closer to like the Clone Wars and the Mandalorian? And it's interesting because I think there's this there's like a real anti-authority undertone to this that is very, very present in those original films. That's less so in the more corporate stuff that's in, from the 90s, right? That's like the prequel stuff.
I think some of the original stuff was sort of smoothed over. I didn't, maybe the early Star Wars films they tapered back a little bit. They wanted to get this anger out there. They wanted to get this sort of mistrust and hatred of power and authority.
Right.
I think now in our world, we can relate so much to it because we experience it every day.
Yeah.
Well, think about the prequel era too. Like we've talked about how, that post 9/11 era was a real psychotic area for like the entire country. We were all, it affected us a lot. That was a real trauma for all of us, right? And I think it really impacted the way we viewed art. And I think that sort of anti-authoritarianism, like that sort of like, damn the man, that sort of thing wouldn't have flown in that era. You couldn't have done it.
It's a black and white. Things were, I guess, with the original trilogy, it was more black and white. Good versus evil. Then it got into more of a nuanced type of thing with the prequels and stuff. And like you said, as we grow older, we see it in different lights and stuff. Now with the content and everything coming out now, it's even more so because it's just so much gray out there. It's not straight black and white now,
right? Because even the conflict with Anakin, all he wanted to do was save his wife. All he wanted to do was save his family.
That is bad, evil, when all he wanted to do was save his wife.
Yeah.
Nevertheless,
how could he be so bad? How could he be evil if
he did kill some children?
Before he got married, he was killing kids. Like we talked about this,
but they were Jedi.
That movie Jedi. Has an explicit message that sometimes kids gotta die. Episode 2 and episode 3.
They couldn't even do anything.
George Lucas firmly believes that you can be 9 years old and need to get got, and those two things are true in Star Wars.
Court.
I mean, it's true, and I think that there's something to be said about what year does 2022 have more in common with, right? Like 1997, which is when he was primarily writing, episode 1 and conceiving of the plot for the prequel trilogy, or 1977, when, you know, Star Wars came out. And when you think about 77, you know, when I think about all the art from the 70s, I think about these anti-heroes. I think about, you know, Watergate. I think about how, you know, there's like Dog Day Afternoons about bank robbers who are like bucking the system. You know, The Sting is all about, you know, these con men. You know, the heroes of the time.
The mafia was huge. There was people felt they were heroes of the working class because they were standing up to, well, they controlled the unions. They were standing up to the police. They were standing up to the establishment.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to see how that is reflected in the art. And, you know, it makes you like, I feel like we're coming closer to these themes of the original trilogy as history has turned that direction back, where we've had sort of, you know, a governmental failure, and we're all sort of living in the aftermath of that now, right? Just like I think, you know, like society was obsessed. What's that?
Like history repeating itself?
Right. Like we've come back around to, you know, hey, we don't really trust authority figures anymore. It's like a lot of the time, probably at least for most people, almost half the time, right? Like you figure almost half the time you look at an authority figure and you think this person does not have my best interests at heart. And that I think is probably common regardless of where you are in the spectrum, right? Like that's
I cannot think of how. I mean, I was only like, when did Watergate happen? That like 76, 77,
70. Well, Nixon resigned in 74. The break-in was during the 72 campaign.
Okay,
so it was like
I was not even born, you know, until 75 and everything. I can't imagine how the country felt about.
I was 3
years old. A very important position being as compromised as it was back then. In the so I mean, and there was no social media back then. So just imagine the just opposed to right now, things are Yes, we were. I will end it like there.
Oh well.
Alive, not born, alive in 75, he said.
It's interesting to say that I think if you showed this, you know, apart from the technical advancements and whatever else, if you showed like an audience that saw maybe just 77 Star Wars, right, the original Star Wars, this, I think they would relate to it on some pretty basic levels because of those thematic similarities. And I think that is a turn in the right direction. I think we all it sounds like we all agree that that's the case, and we're real excited to see what happens next.
Yeah.
Here. And I like when I finished episode 3, when I watched the credits and went all the way through, it suggested I watch Rogue One. I don't know why.
Oh, magic of Disney.
Yo, it actually reminded my wife that she really enjoyed the experience of seeing Rogue One in the theater. Like she said, that was probably her favorite in-theater Star Wars experience of the ones that have come out. So,
Ken, that is media telling you what to do.
And look, if we learned anything, if we learned anything from this art, it's don't listen to those corporate stooges.
And want to keep you on their platforms instead of going over to Netflix.
I mean, I love that the villain of this show is like everybody's worst boss they ever had, right? Like that's like exactly who we're going to be up against, and I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, guys. I mean, like I said, it's definitely been a fun rundown. I mean, it's crazy to think we can break down really just the context of 3 episodes. But yeah, man, we've found a way to get it done in 1 episode. So I guess kudos to all of us. Obviously, we'll be back next week breaking down episode 4. Is they're going to do just 1, right?
Yeah, only one comes out.
1 a week. Yeah.
So we don't have to. We don't have to be quite so ruthless.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have to be quite so ruthless after work. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. That's just what I have to start by 6. I can't be late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We got guys driving in their car with their phone on the steering wheel and stuff. We can't.
You'll be able to watch 1 episode on the TV, just on the TV, right?
Exactly. So we'll be able to get the 1 episode in, in your theater.
Or at the football field, whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
somewhere.
Right.
Somewhere.
Under a tree in shade, yeah. Just watch it, yeah.
That's dedication, though, getting it in. Get your reps in.
Right. But yeah, guys, another fun episode, another classic DP quote that I'm sure we'll save a clip for his greatest hits the greatest hits we'll have to release at some point. So
Oh man,
there's some good
Boca
ones.
Raton, right up there with Boca Raton.
Right. Yeah, guys. Happy everybody's enjoyed this episode, and as we always ask you guys to do, please subscribe, smash all those likes up, and comment on our Facebook page, please, because we really enjoy everything you guys do, and we want to keep giving you great content. But until next week, guys, this is Away.
This is the way.
Away.